All right, so are we ready for cheer? Yay! And I don't have a cheer, so listen, I just thought about that. I should have started with a cheer, right? All right, let's talk a little bit about, and forgive me on the time, we will stick as close to our time, but I think we're all good if I go a little over. Yes, we'll be out of here shortly. But thinking about cheering, when I was 21, I received my first speeding ticket on my 21st birthday. Well, the police officer was so kind to say, had I realized it was your birthday before I started writing, I wouldn't have given it to you. So you would have thought I would have learned my lesson, yes? No. In the next 30 days, I had 2 more speeding tickets. Now, I was in Virginia, safe to say. They're a little strict about speeding there. So what did my insurance company do? They sent me that wonderful little letter. You need to go to driver improvement class. Punishment. Right? So I go to driver improvement class. I sit there all day with the other drivers that look like me that speed. Did I learn anything? Absolutely not. But what's interesting, that was about 25 years ago. If you look at any car insurance ad right now, what are insurance companies doing? Rewarding you for safe driving. Yes, jacking up your rates as well. Yes, everything is expensive. Yeah, listen, that is a real answer. Everything is expensive. And they do jack up your rates, but they've also learned that punishment didn't change behavior for drivers. So now we have safe reward apps, right? We talk about the technology, right? Even insurance companies are like, hey, put this app and we'll monitor you, but we'll reward you. Now again, earlier when I said training, we're not going to talk about reward systems, but the idea of cheering on, if an insurance company can say, I know what the way to change behavior is by encouragement, that's what we need to do too. We can change behavior by encouragement. So the definition of cheering, because y'all know I like definitions, shouting for joy in praise, shouting for joy in praise, encouragement, giving support. And that's what we want to do. So let's go back to our domains of development because, again, our kids are still developing, even in the teenage years. So we're talking about cheering from 17 to adult. All right, let's talk about physical. What are the physical changes my 17 to adults are going through? College. What about physical? Their minds are still growing. Our brain doesn't stop till we're 26, right? So we still have the hormones development, things happening internally, right? Even the idea of sleep, nutrition, a lot of young people, this is why, and kids always say, why do we still have to have PE in 12th grade? And I'm like, because after the high school, you never touch the gym again, right? So thinking about, right, health, nutrition, sleep, all of those things that we have to navigate even in young adulthood, right? Cognitively, our young people, maybe it's jobs, maybe it's college. We're going to talk about careers versus college as well. But even social emotional, graduations. I have so many kids telling me they're afraid to grow up. They're not looking forward to graduation like we did. I couldn't wait. Ooh, getting out of this house, woohoo! No, kids are wanting to stay. Then they go and they come back and stay even longer, right? But even thinking again about those changes, maybe they get married, maybe they don't. We see the numbers changing for people who are deciding to get married and start a family versus people who are deciding to stay single. And so looking at a lot of those changes our kids are dealing with. So we're going to talk a little bit about kind of getting out of the last stage with our young people. But I'm going to talk a lot about relationship with cheer. So I need 2 volunteers for a second. Not everybody jump up at once. All right. Yep. Yep. All right. I'm going to have you over here. I'm going to have you over here. All right. So both of you have directions and instructions in front of you. And your instructions and directions are about cleaning your room. All right. So when we say go, and Josh, you can give me the fun music for cleaning. You're going to follow your directions and clean your room. You ready? All right. Music. The fun music. There we go. Start cleaning. All right. So I'm going to start over here. Yes, give them a hand for cleaning their rooms. Yes? All right. So you know what? You did a great job. You followed directions. You put the puzzle in the bin, right? The red bin. You put everything else in the blue bin. Good job. You can go now and play on your devices. Give her a hand. Stay right there for a second. All right. Let's see what we did. Oh, but yeah. Can you bring those up here for a second? Yeah, you know, I really wanted some stuff in the red bin, though, and I don't know what you did here. Why don't we redo this, okay? Sorry, you're not going to be able to be on your device right now. Why don't you redo this? Okay. All right. How are you feeling right now? Upset. Exactly. Great answer. All right, give them both a round of applause for participating. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's look at their instructions and directions, right? So we had put the puzzle in the red bin. That instruction was followed, yes? Put the other toys in the blue bin. Complete compliance, yes? Over here, where my teenager's frustrated, all I said was put all the toys away. Clean, listen to me. Clear or vague direction? Which one's clear? And what happened when we gave a clear direction? We got compliance, right? And here's what I want you to notice. Not only did I say it, but I put it in a visual handout, right? Visuals. We can text teenagers their chore list. We can leave notes on the fridge like we used to do, right? But one of the things in talking about directions, clear or vague, and the sentiment is correct. When I've done something that I think was done well, and then you come back behind me and say, you didn't do it well enough, or the way that I wanted it done, you've just lost them in the process. And chances are the next time it's time for me to clean my room, how am I feeling? Disgusted and angry. Folks, one thing about directions, it's about increasing compliance if they're clear. And this is not just something when we're young. This is something even in jobs, right? We think about a training manual. What's the purpose of the training manual? Clear instructions and directions, right? We want to make sure folks are doing things well. And that's what we have to think about with our children and giving directions. I want to talk about, because as our kids age, we talk about rules. And a lot of times when I'm doing a Q&A, I haven't seen that question yet, though, but we're going to tackle it here anyway. What rules should you have in your home? And so I'm not a big fan of rules because I already told you I speed, right? So I break rules a little bit, right? Even the speed limit. But rules oftentimes are about what not to do versus what to do. And so one of the things about rules is that if I have a list of rules in front of me, it reminds me of what I'm not supposed to be doing. Things like, don't talk in class, don't get out of your seat. What am I reminded of? Talk in class, get out of my seat. Anybody ever play the game Taboo? All right, so we all know the rule. Oh, this is a good one. Oh, okay, maybe it's not a good one. Here it is, yes. All right, so we're going to play the game Taboo really quickly. Yes? All right. So I have to try to describe this word to you all without using the 5 words here, right? But because these 5 words are in front of me, let's see if you guys can guess this word. All right, ready? And I'm not supposed to say the words that are on here, so let's see how this goes. All right. It is something that, I can't say that word. It is something that, this is hard. People with power, they don't stand, they Oh, you're all doing it right now in a type of item that people usually don't stand in, but they sit in. Oh, I can say that word. But it's people I messed up already because I said royalty. A throne, yeah. But what's happening? My mind is stuck on these words. So when I go into classrooms, for example, I always tell my classroom educators, have your expectations visible, not the things you don't want them to do, because that's what sticks in our mind. The list of expectations, if that's on the wall, that's what's going to stick in my mind, just like with taboo. You guys did great. Great guess on throne, because that took me a minute. All right. That was a hard word. So thinking about expectations versus rules. When we talk about moral development and mental health, we talk about this idea at some point your ability to reason changes as you get older, right? So we talk about Kohlberg's moral development theories. And not to get too technical, but the idea that at some point we stop doing things because I'm going to get in trouble, and we start doing things because I feel like this is something I should or should not do. Your teenagers are at that stage of moral development where they start to move from, I don't do things because I'm going to get in trouble, and notice I said that, right? But now I'm starting to do things because of how I think this moment should go. Not about defiance, it's about reasoning. They're developing. And so when your kid's at the table talking about why they should no longer have to go to church with you, why they should no longer have to eat the green vegetables, right? Why they really shouldn't have to be in by 10 o'clock, or maybe they should have a bedtime. It's because of development. And now what they're learning to do is not to follow just rules, but to understand, why is this important to me? And so I like to talk in the language of expectations. And expectations are very specific. They tell people what you want to see. And they remind you, again, just like if they're visible on a list, of what I am expecting from you. And they're often time limited, right? So something like no dishes in your room. Well, kids have dishes in their room all the time. Versus, hey, take your dishes to the sink before going to bed. Gives them time to comply, tells them specifically what I need out of their room and where to put it. I love teenagers. I don't have a trash can. That's why the trash is on the floor, right? The little things matter when you really think about it. As we move into this age with teenagers, our communication also changes. Teenagers versus toddlers. Let's talk about communication. What's the communication look like with a toddler? And those of you with toddlers, you're smiling, right? Yes, they want to talk. They want to share everything. They're going to tell you too much, and you're like, oh, when it's bedtime, right? Teenagers. Silence, right? It's like, oh, they sneak up on you, right? Because they're so quiet. But here's the thing about teenagers and communication. They will talk when they have something to say. And I want us to be ready to listen when they do start talking. It's really important. One of the things that I share with parents of teenagers is quality versus quantity. I am not going to expect the same volume of conversation from my teenager that I did when they were toddlers. It's just development. How many of you coming home from a long day want to sit and now talk for the next 3 hours? And yet, that's sometimes the pressure we even put on our children, right? Hey, listen, calm down a little bit. They're alive, you see them, right? But when you think about quality versus quantity, I'll be honest, as a mom, there are some days when I may have 10 minutes of conversation with my kids. And that's just the reality of their schedules. They're in sports, they're in activities. I work. That's just the reality. But those 10 to 15 minutes, I promise you, I can know more about their day than their dad, who's been home for hours, but we won't talk about that. Because I'm intentional. And here's the cool thing. When I will say things like, what's the tea? I get it. Oh, I get the drama, what's going on at school, versus, well, how's your day? Hey, listen, they're not answering that question. You've been asking that since they were in kindergarten. Come up with a new question. What was interesting today? How was that science test? Be specific even with your question if you want an answer from a teenager, right? And recognize that it's going to be one word and keep it moving. They're not giving you a dissertation. Accept the one word and keep it moving. And later at dinner, try another question. But one of the things we want it to be natural, not forced, and I'm going to come back to the middle point. Sometimes if you notice your day, how much of your communication is actual directions versus conversation for relationship? How much of your comments to your children are what to do, how to do it, when to do it, versus how are you? How are you feeling? What would you like to do today? And don't get me wrong, I'm in that mom mode 90% of the time. This morning, I was really feeling convicted of bossing people around in here, and I apologize if I offended anybody. But when things have to be done, right, your mind's in a certain way. But relationship matters. And that relational piece is what we really want to make note of. Not how much they're talking to you, but the quality. Teenagers tell me, again, they're not going to answer their cell phone because all they're going to do is yell at me. Why answer? I know what my mom's going to say. Why answer? Increases compliance when we have relationship. That's how we get them to engage with us. I want to talk a little bit about my teenagers being stressed and my young people being stressed, because they're stressed. They're stressed just like you and I are stressed. Amount of homework they have, amount of schoolwork they have, but even the pressures. If you remember your little blue bag, pull out your little blue bag, if you still have it. Remember those bubbles that we helped them with when they were little? Hey, listen, hand this. I went and did a speaking for a group of teenagers at a high school. And I have never seen high schoolers more excited when I pulled out some bubbles. Because listen, self-regulation, even when we're stressed. Take out the bubbles, take a deep breath, relax, right? Your little notebook in there, besides being a spot where you could ask some questions or take some notes, journaling and writing it down. Now, the one thing about journaling, parents, you're not reading your teenager's journal or diary. That's a no-no. I get that all the time. Well, can I read it? No. Because I want them to get it out. I want them to feel comfortable to express it, to have a safe place. But that's important. Kids are worried about school. They're worried about social pressures, and we talk about social media. But even before social media, there was always social pressure. Transition years, going from, the little fish or the big fish in elementary school to now the little fish in middle school, to do it all over again by 9th grade. Right? Whether we make the team, we don't make the team, they like me, they don't like me. Kids today have so many things to worry about. COVID, we know the impact, and as Vita said earlier, it's going to be with us probably 5 to 10 years, if not longer, the impact of COVID on this young generation. Think about it for a second. You had students for their first time in school, and their interactions with people with a mask on. And now you're wondering why in 3rd grade they can't play together at recess? Hey, listen, they lost an entire time of normal development, skills that were supposed to be there for them in a natural environment. You had to be 6 feet apart. Remember that when they first went back to school? And we're all thinking, how are they going to do that? Yeah. So now that's why they're all running around for the hand sanitizer and afraid to touch people. So funny. But it's not funny, but it is. It's the reality now. They're more germaphobe than we were, right? There was a study that looked at teenagers and things that they worry about. And they said 13 to 17-year-olds, 80% of them worry about finding a job. And that's after high school. Bless you. 80% of teenagers, even before they finish high school, they are concerned and worried. Will I have a job? What kind of job will I have? Will I have a career? Finances, if they don't have a job now, many of them are even worried about using their own money and having money. COVID has hit all of us financially. And so even our kids are aware of it. And that's starting to show up where kids are having real fear around finances. One of the kids the other day, they were so cute. We were talking about financial literacy in the high schools, and I think it's a beautiful thing that we have financial literacy. But she said, it just made me worry. I have to budget. I have bills. I have all this stuff. And I was like, baby girl, you're just in junior. You have 2 more years for that life. It's okay. But even the idea of going over financial literacy stresses them out. And so when your teenager says it's been a long day and I just want to be alone, take pause. That's not against you. They're not being rude. They've had a long day and they just need a moment. Now, I'm not going to knock on my happy hour, folks, but listen, adults go to happy hour when they've had a long day, yes? So their escape to their room on their device is their happy hour, absolutely. And let them have that time. Don't stress them about homework right now. They've got all night. They want to stay up anyway, right? They'll get it done. But even having that time to just decompress from the day, we need it too. I always tease people in my office, let me put my bags down before we start having a conversation. Because there's something about carrying all this weight and then someone saying something else to you in the moment. It's a lot, yeah. And so just being mindful of, hey, even that after school, when we talk about after school release, kids are having that. And then that's when we see more challenging behaviors and difficult behaviors, because what do? Oh, they're home now from school, go clean your room. We immediately put a demand, right? And now you've escalated them because they're not regulated coming home, because they have all this stress. And now you just put a demand in the moment. That's why we have difficult times even after school. What time does primetime TV start? 7 was the game shows, right? We have Jeopardy, Wheel of Fortune. 8 o'clock. So what do you think we all should be doing by 8 o'clock? Nothing. When you think about how it used to be, dinner at 7, or dinner at 6, shows at 7, and then everybody relaxed, right? Think about how much conflict happens in your home after a certain time. Be mindful of that, right? Even as the night wears on, we talk about the witching hour, it's a real thing, but everybody needs that time even as we settle in. So I said, if demands are going to happen, it's not a good idea right after school, maybe right after dinner because we've all been fed, we got a little bit of energy, and then give it a time limit so that everybody can relax the rest of the night. That's an important thing. One thing that kids are worried about, college versus career, and what to do after high school. And we're getting in the home stretch here. Many students, 55% of students say, when surveyed, that they have no plans to attend college. Their reasoning, they're looking out for their own mental health, which is an interesting thing. They're looking at the financial stability, right? The issue of how much it costs, and so are we as parents, as I have 2 getting ready to go in that phase. But our teenagers are making life decisions because they're worried about this stuff. They said only about 45% of kids these days, if you survey them and ask them, will say, yes, I want to go to college, and actually have a career planned out. And that's the other piece, right? We see a lot of kids go away, and then they're undecided or have no idea what they want to do, and then they feel lost. And I'm going to encourage you, just because they're gone, they're still your kids. They're not adults. We have to support kids those first 4 years of college and beyond, but they need us. They still need us. And many times on college campuses, unfortunately, students get lost, right? They're not coddled like they are in high school. Let's be honest. I love my educators, but they're coddled. They're not in a college setting. And no one's checking in on them. No one's making sure they have their homework done. Even the RAs, if they're there, we don't know. It's like, isn't that your whole job? Like to make sure my kid's okay on campus? But even this idea of career in college, many children are thinking about things like a gap year. Many students are saying, I want to go to a trade school. I always tell them, listen, the HVAC guy makes more an hour than I do. So there is nothing wrong with being in the trades, because right now they are paying great money. But here's the other thing. We have to also realize there are not going to be many us. They're not going to be our mini-me's. And our parents, I know many of us in my generation, you were pushed into education, you were pushed into college. I've shared that my son wants to be a chemist and my daughter wants to be a fashion designer. But what's interesting, she goes to meet with her guidance counselor, and she's a straight A student, she's bright, she's wonderful academically, and he's looking and he's like, oh, with these grades, oh, you want to be an engineer? You want to be, She's like, no, fashion designer. He's like, okay then, and he literally turns the page on her as if the conversation was over, and I'm like, dude, you know how much creativity and math and skills that goes into design? And this baby girl can do a dress in 3 hours and wear it that same night. She is talented. But again, looking beyond what it's supposed to look like. Hey, listen, I recognize her level of intelligence are in the creative arts, and that's where I push her. And that's where I allow her opportunities to grow because that's important. But we have to also be aware that, hey, kids aren't asking to be lawyers and doctors. They do want to be YouTubers, and here's what I do with the YouTube dream. It's just like the hoop dreams. And I say to kids, listen, you want to be a YouTuber? I encourage you. I'm cheering you on. See what kind of jobs they have, because while you're wanting to be the YouTube star, you could be working at the YouTube company. Get them there. Cheer them on. Stop shutting it down just because you don't understand it. When I think about even the technology, right, it's interesting. So around the room, and for those of you online, we put it in your chat, you can scan your codes and again, go on an image and something will pop up. That was not even heard of. So the kids that are creating and the people that are creating technology today are people that think out of the box. So we have to recognize that with our kids and cheer on that next step, even if it doesn't look like what we thought it should look like. Because here again, I have no expectations when it comes to I just want them to win and be successful. So we're going to close out with a question before we get to our Q&A questions. When your children leave home, what will your relationship be like? True story, when I was a kid, I bought a sign, and it was a proverb: train a child in the way they should go, and when they are old, they will not depart from it. And as a kid, it used to be in our bedroom, hanging on the wall. I had a little ball and jacks. I think that's why I picked it up, because it had the ball and jacks, but it would be on our wall. And the significance of it then, obviously, I was a kid. But now as a parent, that is really my mindset. That's really my goal. The rest of this, hey, listen, if we do the work the first 7 years, you have it easy the rest of that time. But you're always going to be coaching, and we're always going to be cheering. And even if we have to go back and train some things, because you know what? That's what your personal trainer would do, right? They're not going to be like, oh, you should know how to do this already. We did it, 20 sessions ago. They're going to be like, oh, you still need help with that? Let's review. Let's go over it together. Let me get you there. And they whip out their little training plan and tell you where they are and where you're not. But again, that's our vision. Parenting's not tied to culture and race, things that people are trying to make some of the parenting models about. Parenting is tied to your relationship. In every culture, the research supports, in every culture, parents want connection. They want their kids doing well. And in every culture and every parenting style, people are struggling with that and wanting help in that moment.